This is the podcast overview for week 5. We will be covering chapter 5, learning. So just to let you know, we've skipped for now chapter 4 on consciousness. We will be coming back to that later. I just like this order a little bit better. So I like to cover learning first before we talk about consciousness. So just to note, you're skipping chapter 4. Here is the to-do list for this week. Again, try to work in order of the things that are presented here. Makes the most sense. In terms of what you have coming up for this week, here are the objectives for Chapter 5. You can click here and I give a nice overview of these different concepts that you're going to be covering in the chapter. You're going to be reading Chapter 5 as well. These are the lecture slides that go along with the chapter. And in addition to the lecture slides and the Chapter 5 reading, you're also reading HAWK 3.4, and it's called See Aggression, Do Aggression. It's Bandura's pretty seminal study on modeling a behavior, particularly aggression. So those are the readings for the week. I've also attached something to help you out this week. This isn't anything that you're going to be turning in. It's just a worksheet, and it deals with classical conditioning and operant conditioning. So this week, as we cover learning, those are two big key areas of learning, classical conditioning and operant conditioning. They're different ways in which we learn via our environment. And so they're all outlined in the chapter, but they can get a little confusing because there's some terminology. So you're going to be working through the different variables that are present within classical conditioning. You have an unconditioned stimulus and a conditioned stimulus, and then you have an unconditioned response and a conditioned response. Now, if you're new to psychology, or you've never taken intro psych before, this can get a little bit confusing. If you have some familiarity with it, then that's good. But I know not everybody does, so I just wanted to provide an extra resource for you. The worksheet is meant to give you some examples of different classical conditioning scenarios where you pick out what's what, and then the answers are there as well, so you can work on it and then you can kind of check your answers to see if you got it right. If you're really stumped and you don't know what to do, you can ask someone in the student lounge. I would definitely recommend working together. Use a discussion board in the student lounge and work together on this. Hopefully that will help you out a little bit in deciphering what's what there. And then your discussion for this week is based off of both the Chapter 5 reading and the HAWK reading, and then you're going to respond to these questions here. And like I said, the study that you're reading in the HAWK book is the original study by Bandura, Ross, and Ross. They studied aggression specifically, and how children would be affected by seeing aggressive models, what they would do in return to viewing aggression by adults. So you're going to talk about the study design that was used. What kind of a design did they use? If you need to refresh your memory with methodological designs, you'll want to go back to Chapter 1. Talk about what design they used and what were the different variables in that design. And I'll give you a big hint. There's dependent and independent variables involved. And then once you've done that, you're going to think about aggression today in society. And based on what Bandura, Ross, and Ross found back in the 60s, late 50s, when they did this study and many others after it, what do you think that they would say about society now? Obviously, when they did this study, aggression in society was different than it is today. How has it changed today? What are we seeing today? Are we still seeing a modeling of aggressive acts in society today? Can you elaborate on that? Take this opportunity to integrate in anything from the readings where you can plug in concepts and you kind of show off what you know. And then lastly, besides children, in what other domains or within what other kinds of relationships might observational learning be relevant? Okay, so Bandura showed that aggression is modeled, that children watch adults and then they model that aggression. That's observational learning. They learn by observing others, particularly influential others like parents or adults that they look up to. So what other relationships might that happen in, right? So think about all the different relationship dynamics where you have one person modeling another. I mean, I can think of a ton, but I'm not going to give any away. I want you to come up with your own unique examples and explain that. So that's the discussion. I would highly recommend before you get started on the readings and dive into the discussion that you do watch the videos. I have 2 of them for you this week. This one, How to Train a Brain, gives a nice overview of classical and operant conditioning, talks about some of the key principles and what's called behaviorism. Behaviorism is a manner of learning that involves classical and operant conditioning. B.F. Skinner was one of the proponents of behaviorism, as was Ivan Pavlov, who started classical conditioning with his training of dogs. So you're going to be taking a look at those early psychologists and their work this week as you're going through the material. And this video just gives you a nice kind of overview of it. So good to watch that first, I would say, before you dive into the material, and then maybe even watch it again after you've read. This repetition, especially from a video, is really good because you process the information differently when it's the first time you're seeing it, and then you process it again in a different manner when it's not the first time you're seeing it. After you've heard the stuff, you've read the stuff, you go back, you watch the video, other things are going to pop out at you or jump out at you that maybe didn't before. You're going to understand it at a deeper level. So I would really highly recommend doing that. And then the second video, it's called the Bobo Beatdown. So it features Bandura's original Bobo doll study on aggression. This is the study that's talked about in the Hawk reading. So again, a nice reiteration of the material that you're learning this week. So you can go ahead and watch that. And both these videos are very short, like less than 10 minutes. And then you have your quiz on the chapter, on chapter 5, and you have your second exam, which covers chapters 3 and 5. So that wraps up the week. As you're working through the material and you're working through this worksheet, please let me know if you have questions or you get stuck. If you'd like to have a Zoom meeting with me to go over anything, I'd be happy to do that.